It's 10 o'clock, midnight here in Amman. This is Sky News at 10. I'm Yalda Hakim. Our top story. Missiles launched against Jerusalem tonight. Israel warns civilians to expect further attacks and stay close to shelters. Israel warns Tehran will burn and says its air force is carrying out extensive strikes in Iran. Iran threatens to target the UK, France and the United States if they help Israel.
Also ahead, the Prime Minister launches a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs after facing months of criticism for resisting calls to set one up. 2 US politicians are shot in Minnesota in what Donald Trump describes as horrific violence. Grieving families wait for loved ones to be identified after the Air India crash that killed 270 people. And the King and Queen are cheered by thousands gathered for Trooping the Colour, marking Charles's official birthday. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in the press preview from 10:30.
Good evening, I'm Yalda Hakim, live in Amman. Israel has warned that Tehran will burn if Iran continues to launch attacks at Israeli homes. A barrage of missiles fired at Israel by Iran has killed at least 3 people and left dozens more injured. In the last half an hour, the IDF said it has identified missiles launched from Iran towards Jerusalem and warns civilians to stay close to shelters. It comes as Keir Starmer says the UK is moving jets to the Middle East after Iran warns the UK, US and France that their bases in the region will be targeted if they help Israel stop Iran's strikes. Sky's Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle reports.
Iran fired hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel in 4 waves throughout Friday evening and into the early hours of Saturday. There were interceptions and explosions above Jerusalem, but Tel Aviv bore the brunt. One missile hit houses in a residential neighborhood south of the center. 2 people were killed here and dozens injured.
These houses took a direct hit from an Iranian ballistic missile last night. This is south of Tel Aviv. It's very much a civilian area, a residential area, no sign of military installations anywhere around. I mean, the damage is immense. 2 people were killed and dozens wounded in this attack. And I mean, look at the blast radius is 40, 50 meters perhaps. Cars blown on top of each other, shrapnel in the walls of the houses, windows blown in, roofs completely destroyed. The Israeli defenses are very good, but they are not perfect. And this is what happens when a ballistic missile does hit.
Sivan grew up in this house. Her elderly parents were inside it when the missile struck.
She's got damages. All her face is like been damaged. Probably her nose has been broken. And my father, they're 75 years old, so they're 75 years old, so they're not healthy.
How do you feel looking at this?
Horrible. Terrible. Horrible. All my life. And that's it.
Iran has also launched hundreds of drones at Israel. This was shot down near the Dead Sea this morning. And the Jordanian Air Force took out UAVs crossing its airspace. Israel has continued striking Iran without let-up. They have targeted nuclear sites and ballistic missile batteries. And the Israeli military says they now have opened up a path to Iran, giving them almost total freedom of operation over the capital, Tehran.
There's more to be done. So we're preparing. We paved the way to Tehran, and our pilots over the skies of Tehran will deal blows to the Ayatollah regime that they cannot even imagine. And I can tell you this, we have indications that senior leaders in Iran are already packing their bags. They sense what's coming.
Israel has killed 9 senior Iranian nuclear scientists. Posters with their faces on have been put on billboards around Tehran with a vow to hit Israel back hard. Iran is expected to launch more missiles at Israel tonight. Its leadership is reportedly in some disarray, but still determined to keep fighting. At this moment, there is no talk of a ceasefire, and after 2 days of constant bombing, without much consequence, Israel will be reluctant to stop now. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Tel Aviv.
Well, we're starting to understand more about what Israel's ambitions might be in the region. Adam Parsons has been taking a closer look at this tragedy.
Well, when Iran retaliated, it struck Israel with 4 waves of attacks, pretty much indiscriminately hitting Tel Aviv or nearby Rishon LeZion with missiles and with drones. Now, that is a contrast to the Israeli attack on Iran, which appears to have been much more precise and focused. So these are the places that we know to have been hit by Operation Rising Lion. In Kermanshah, which is just here, this missile base, where you can see, seems to have been blackened after it was hit. Actually, you can see some smoke rising on that image. Let's have a look at Tabritz. Now, this is a surface-to-air missile base. That's the photo before. Look at the buildings there, all intact. This is just one taken just after. You can see again, blackened, smoke rising, some of those buildings are damaged. Nuclear sites were also targeted. This one is in Fordor. That's actually a photo from March. The surface buildings at those nuclear sites were hit, but the main work at places like this goes on deep underground. It's unlikely the explosions would penetrate that far. You'd need American bunker busters. As for people in Tehran, the IDF claims that these are the precise spots in Iran's capital where it killed key military commanders. And if we change this map to these symbols, these each represent the killing of a nuclear scientist who was working on the weapons program, according to the Israelis. But all this military action has really got another aim, and that is to try to undermine Iran's leadership. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been in charge for nearly 36 years, and the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, hopes to spark regime change in the country. And that is why Israel has focused on trying to degrade the IRGC. That's an arm loyal to protecting the regime. And the operation has killed these military leaders. You could argue that that man, and that man, 3 hugely significant targets. It's going to have to do a lot more, though, to undermine the Tehran leadership. And that is very likely to mean a lot more attacks.
Adam Parsons reporting there. Well, we are going to continue to monitor Iran's retaliation as they continue to launch ballistic missiles in Israel's direction. In the last hour or so, the IDF and the Jordanian Air Force have identified a barrage of missiles, and we heard sirens here. We have received the all clear, and those missiles have been intercepted, and Israel continues its attacks on key sites in Iran. So we will be following all the developments here. But for now, back to you, Jonathan, in the studio.
Yalda, many thanks. The Prime Minister has announced that there will be a full statutory inquiry into grooming gangs. Keir Starmer said the new inquiry was the right thing to do after the findings of a review submitted by Baroness Louise Casey, who has carried out a months-long inquiry into the abuse of young girls. The government has resisted calls for such an inquiry for months, saying it would delay justice for victims. Our political correspondent, Nick Martin, joins us now. So, Nick, something of a U-turn.
Well, Jonathan, it's hard to see it in any other way because of that pressure that the Labour government have been under for many, many months now from across the House to launch a national inquiry into child sexual exploitation. Until this day, the Prime Minister didn't feel that it was necessary to hold a national inquiry. He said it would only serve to delay justice for the victims. But it all sort of came to a head last January when the Conservatives and Reform were putting a lot of pressure on the government to say, look, we need to look properly at why so many groups of predominantly Pakistani men have been abusing white young girls in mainly northern towns for the last 15 years. And no real inquiry has, on a pinhead, tried to get to the bottom of that. Even Elon Musk waded in January, going to X, his platform, and criticising the Prime Minister. So at that point in January, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, announced that Baroness Louise Casey would conduct what she called a rapid audit of child sexual exploitation to see if there's any merit in having a national inquiry. Now, Baroness Casey will report next week, but we already know what's in it. And she says that white girls were not believed. They were institutionally disbelieved because of a fear from authorities of accusations of racism. So asked today whether the Prime Minister would accept those recommendations, he suddenly U-turned and said he would, and now that is set in train for a national statutory investigation into grooming gangs, which the Prime Minister says will now carry through. Now, Nigel Farage of Reform says this is a welcome U-turn. Kemi Badenoch says it's taken a report and a review for the Prime Minister to change his mind.
OK, Nick in Westminster, thank you. A vast manhunt is underway across Minnesota after the assassination of a state politician and her husband and the attempted killing of another. Well, this is the man police are looking for, 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter. State, local and federal police have flooded the Minneapolis suburbs searching for him. US correspondent David Blevins has the story.
Another shocking chapter in America's heated political landscape, but this time a deadly one. Two Democratic Minnesota politicians shot alongside their partners inside their family homes. The first shooting happened at around 2 a.m. in the city of Champlin. John Hoffman, a long-serving state senator, targeted alongside his wife. Bullet holes splayed across the front door. They're both being treated in hospital. Then 90 minutes later, as police checked on the Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, they came across the gunman, reportedly disguised as a police officer. But it was too late. She and her husband both killed.
Brooklyn Park police officers encountered the individual who immediately fired at them, and they exchanged gunfire, and then the individual was able to escape during that exchange of gunfire.
Heavily armed police prepared for a manhunt and to protect elected officials.
We are asking for the public's help at this point in time in locating Vance Luther Bolter, who is a 57-year-old white male who's 6 feet 1 inch tall, 220 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes.
As officers recovered writings that mentioned the names of multiple lawmakers in the fake police car they believed the suspect was using. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz calling it a politically motivated assassination.
She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place.
That chart's a couple of months old. And
they're scenes all too familiar in American politics.
Take a look at what happened.
The president himself narrowly escaped with his life when he was shot while campaigning at an election rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now in charge, he was quick to denounce the violence and promise justice. I've been briefed on the terrible shooting that took place in Minnesota, he said. Our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI are investigating the situation, and they will be prosecuting anyone involved to the fullest extent of the law. Such horrific violence will not be tolerated in the United States of America. God bless the great people of Minnesota, a truly great place. Tim Walz was Donald Trump's rival in that election, running for vice president. Now they are on the same page.
We must all, Minnesota and across the country, stand against all forms of political violence.
Protests were taking place across the US in opposition to Donald Trump. But while the manhunt for the suspect was underway, in Minneapolis, the governor warned people not to attend for their own safety. David Blevins, Sky News.
Today marks 8 years since 72 people died in the Grenfell Tower fire. It is the final anniversary before demolition work begins. Some survivors and family of the victims were upset when the government announced plans to knock the building down earlier this year. Thousands of people have gathered to remember a firefighter who died alongside a colleague and a member of the public in a major blaze last month. 30-year-old Jenny Logan was killed in the fire at the Bicester Motion site on the 15th of May, alongside her colleague Martin Sadler, 38, and 57-year-old father of two, Dave Chester. Harrods is preparing to take legal action against the estate of its former owner, Mohammed Al Fayed. The multi-million-pound legal bill for compensating his alleged sexual abuse victims is continuing to rise. Sky News has learnt that the Knightsbridge department store, which has been owned by a Qatari sovereign wealth fund since 2010, plans to file a so-called passing over application in the High Court as early as next week. The black box from the Air India plane, which crashed shortly after takeoff, has been recovered. At least 270 people were killed. As investigators continue to probe the cause, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with the sole survivor, a British man from Leicester. Our India reporter Neville Lazarus has the story.
There is growing frustration and anger amongst family and friends of the victims of the crash. And it's growing, directed towards the administration. The weight under the searing heat is agonizing. The trauma compounded by the lack of communication and information. Rashid has lost 3 members, including his 4-year-old niece, all British nationals from Gloucester.
Victims' families need confirmation. You've taken our DNA, and how many have been matched? How many bodies have you identified? Now it's over 48 hours and we have no information. Will they give us a body when it's decomposed? Should we take someone else's body?
He's not alone in this pain. Rafiq Menon has been camping here for days to collect the bodies of 4 members of his family, all British, living in London. Javed and his wife Mariam and their 2 children Zayan and Amani came to visit their grandmother for Eid.
With folded hands, I request you to ask the officials, not me. There's no information from them. It's been over 72 hours now. We are looking for our children. Where are they? We want to know if they have been found. Tell us if you have them. Don't torture us. At least tell us their bodies have been found.
DNA tests are still being matched with the bodies, many disfigured beyond recognition due to the nature of the crash. The Air India plane failed to gain altitude after takeoff and within minutes plummeted into the ground, erupting into a ball of fire. Fully loaded with fuel, the Boeing Dreamliner bound for London's Gatwick Airport crashed into a residential area, incinerating everything in its path. Prime Minister Modi visited the crash site and took stock of the situation. The Civil Aviation Authority is now looking to overhaul its safety policy.
We do have a robust protocol which we follow every time. We also felt that there is a need to do an extended surveillance into the Boeing 787 series.
All this may be for the future. And as the debris of the aircraft is being removed, families want a closure and with dignity. Neville Lazarus, Sky News, Ahmedabad.
The son of one of the crash victims has told Sky News he will relive his mother's last moments until the day he dies. Manju Mahesh Patel was on the London Gatwick-bound plane when it crashed. Her son, Chirag, has been speaking with Sky's Adele Robinson.
I want to remember Mum like this. I don't want to go and have to identify, a burnt corpse. Your own parent. Yeah. How do you ever get over that? That will be with me. That's with me for life. That till the day I die. I will think what were our last moments.
Manju Mahesh Patel was sat just 1 row behind the only survivor of Flight 171. Her son is haunted by her final seconds.
The thing about Mum is, my mum is her bond with her faith. It's unbreakable. Unbreakable. In times of stress, she would always say, God's name. So I know that... upon takeoff, I know that she was saying his name.
Speaking to Sky News, Chirag says his mother had been doing charity work at a temple and was returning home to her family after months away. Manju was among more than 270 killed in Ahmedabad when the plane crashed seconds after takeoff.
I hope it was just painless, instant, and I'm confident with her faith, with the faith that she had in her religion. I know she's there now and at peace, and I hope she can, hope she can see us.
52 British nationals died, and victims were remembered at vigils across the UK.
He was too young, too much still to give, too much still to be done, and too much to offer.
Including Dr. Pratik Joshi.
I don't think that I'll ever forget the photograph of them on the plane, full of optimism about their new adventure.
A radiologist in Derby, he'd taken this photo just before takeoff and had been bringing his family to live in the city. His wife and children also killed.
He's been taken away from us in a very cruel and abrupt way. And his family as well. And all think about his family back in India, who's missing his son, they're missing a daughter-in-law, and they're missing all their grandchildren who will never see growing up.
The losses make us all hug our families and loved ones a little closer and remind us of how precious our time together is.
There has been, however, some criticism of the airline.
I can't understand just the lack of empathy from Air India. I just cannot understand. And then I did say to them, why haven't you been in touch? They're like, you can go to our website or our Twitter page. And then they called me a couple of times saying, do you want to book? And I said, which flights? They said, there's the same one from Gatwick. I said, say straight away, literally this happened on the Thursday, you're telling me on the Friday afternoon, do you want that flight this evening? That one crashed, the one coming back, where Air 172 goes out. They said, do you want Air 172? I said, how can you ask me that? My mum just died on Air India.
Air India said they're deeply saddened, stand in solidarity with the families, and their teams are doing everything possible to extend care and support. But while this is a time for grief, families also want to know why. As UK investigators arrive in India, they hope it won't be long before answers. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
A parade will be held in Washington to mark the 250th anniversary of the US Army, which also coincides with Donald Trump's 79th birthday. And Vladimir Putin is among those to have called the president to wish him many happy returns and talk about Iran. Well, let's speak to Sky's US correspondent, Mark Stone, who's at the parade in Washington. Mark, we'll be hearing from the president a little later, and it's the first time, isn't it, we've heard from him since the escalation in the Middle East.
Yeah, it is remarkable that apart from two tweets or Truth Social post that he put out yesterday morning after the Israeli attacks on Iran, we haven't seen or heard from the president at all. It's very unusual. He will address the crowds here tonight who are gathered for a celebration of not his birthday, he says, but the 250th birthday of the US Army. Have a look at the crowds that are beginning to gather here on the Washington Mall, just underneath the Washington Monument. And what we will see over the course of the next couple of hours is a massive display of American military might. There will be tanks, there will be helicopters, there will be planes, all the rest of it. Donald Trump was at the Bastille parade in France a few years ago, and he liked what he saw. And he asked, publicly said, why don't we have anything like this? And so now they have. It is, so he says, simply a coincidence that it is the birthday of both the US Army and his birthday on the same day. I think it is the political context in which this event is happening that makes it awkward. The political overtones on the week when he deployed US military to America's streets to quell protests, on the week where America's closest closest ally, Israel, is literally right now in the middle of bombing campaigns over Iran. It makes the whole event feel somewhat uncomfortable, but I can tell you here at the moment, it's a kind of festival atmosphere in Washington as people are gathering to look at the hardware. There are helicopters and tanks parked up on the mall for people to look at. This is kind of like a feel-good moment for Donald Trump, a feel-powerful moment. It kind of embodies the mantra that has been the sort of motto of his second term, which is peace through strength. He's trying to demonstrate that peace through strength. But what I'm interested in, Jonathan, is how he frames it in his speech. Will he make reference to the fact that it is his birthday and make some reference to this happening on his birthday? And what will he say about events in the Middle East, which are unfolding in real time many thousands of miles away from here?
OK, lots of coverage, of course, throughout the night here on Sky News as that parade gets underway. Mark, for now, thank you. Well, staying with the Middle East now, the UK government is sending more RAF jets to the Middle East after Iran warned it will target British military bases if the UK helped to stop strikes on Israel. The Prime Minister says the extra jets will provide contingency support across the region as hostilities escalate. Sky's political editor, Beth Rigby, travelled with the Prime Minister to Canada ahead of the G7 and joins us now from Ottawa. Beth, what was said then on the flight? What can we expect over the next few days?
Yeah, Jonathan, so look, we've just landed in Ottawa. The Prime Minister is actually going to spend the day here tomorrow. He's going to have a bilateral with Mark Carney, the new Canadian Prime Minister. You might remember him. He used to be the Bank of England governor back in the UK. He's had a long-standing close relationship with Labour. You also might remember he once introduced Rachel Reeves at Labour Party conference before she became Chancellor. So these men have a good relationship. Tomorrow they're going to be talking about trade. The Prime Minister on the plane talking about how he wanted to deepen trade ties with Canada. But really this just the warm-up act for fast-moving events in the Middle East. And as Mark was saying, all eyes here in North America on what is happening in the Middle East. The Prime Minister on the plane over described the situation as intense and fast-moving. He confirmed that the UK are sending fighter jets to the region. He said that he is moving assets to the region, including jets, and that is for contingency support. He said, I am clear-eyed about my obligations and duties as the Prime Minister to the people of UK. When I asked him about whether he was prepared to defend Israel, as the UK did last October when it offered air support to defend Israel against strikes from Tehran, he just said, I am not getting into that. But that matters because Tehran has warned that if the UK gets involved in any sort of defence, in any sort of assistance of Israel, they have warned that they will attack UK bases. So this is a very live and fluid situation. And the Prime Minister said that he'd had a number of calls. He's spoken to Trump, he's spoken to the leader of Saudi Arabia, he spoke to Netanyahu on Friday, and he said even on the plane those talks were continuing. And really, we're here for the G7. It's the first G7 Trump will have attended in his second administration as US President. It's the first G7 our Prime Minister has attended as our leader. But really, the agenda has been scrambled because of the Middle East. All eyes really on what Trump says. He hasn't called for de-escalation yet by Netanyahu, but nor has the US offered military support. So all eyes on Trump. The Prime Minister very clear talking about de-escalation. That's been echoed by the President of France, Macron, and indeed by Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada. All eyes on what happens in the next 24 hours. And this summit really broadly, it had low ambition anyway. Mark Carney had not gonna have a communique. That's normally when all the leaders agree a document at the end of the summit, things that they've agreed on, a roadmap to implement that. No plans for that, not least because they're worried Donald Trump just won't come to the table. President Zelensky is coming. The Prime Minister said on the plane that he is hopeful that there will be some progress around Ukraine. There's talk about whether or not there might be more sanctions. But really, all of that scrambled for now as Western leaders look to Iran and Israel and look to see how they de-escalate and also look to see what Trump does next.
Beth in Ottawa, thank you. Now, crowds gathered at Buckingham Palace today as the King celebrated his official birthday with a fly-past by the Red Arrows at Trooping the Colour. Charles wore a black armband and a minute's silence was held in tribute of those who were killed in the Air India plane crash on Thursday. Our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills, was among the crowds and sent this report.
The usual soundtrack announced their departure, the King and Queen leaving Buckingham Palace for his annual birthday parade. But this year with alterations and the addition of black armbands. Princess Anne, Prince William, Prince Edward and the King among those wearing them. As a mark of respect for those who died in the Air India crash and those who mourn them. With the Princess of Wales, George, Charlotte and Louis were on best behaviour as crowds of royal fans and some protesters lined the Mall. Arriving on Horse Guards Parade in the heat, the King from his carriage inspected the guard, the Queen offering a helping hand as they took their place alongside the Princess of Wales and paused. With a minute's silence for the victims of the Air India crash. But then the display they've spent months rehearsing for stepped off as normal. The Coldstream Guards taking centre stage to troop their colour, marking their 375th anniversary. Even more impressive in the hot weather. The King, it seems, feeling it too from his sigh of relief. A man who, remember, is still having cancer treatment, but always with an eye on his duties. We're told that it was the King who wanted changes made to the parade to reflect what had happened in India. We know that he is an emotional and empathetic man, but also hugely aware of the role that the royal family can play when it comes to moments when the nation should come together to remember and reflect. For those who enjoy the pageantry, this felt like a distraction from the horror of news happening elsewhere. The royals taking their usual place on the balcony, looking to the skies as the Red Arrows this year turned green, using sustainable aviation fuel for the first time. It was Prince Louis who gave the final wave from a family mindful of their position and what they can do in more challenging times. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Buckingham Palace.
And a beautiful day for it as well. And that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, I'm joined by entrepreneur and PR consultant Leon Emerald and journalist and author Christina Patterson. And among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front of The Observer. Its headline warns of new battle lines in the Middle East. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.